About a week ago, Politicon 2019 was held in Nashville, Tennessee. During a few of the events, a debate and a panel, the subject of Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem was brought up, and I saw it as an opportunity to make an important point about American political dialogue. The criticism of Colin Kaepernick goes as follows.
Do I believe that Colin Kaepernick had a right to be a fool and kneel during the national anthem? Absolutely. Being civilly disobedient is a right. But you know what? I also have a right to call him unpatriotic and disrespectful for kneeling during the national anthem. While it was paid as a kind of tribute to our veterans. It was selfish for him to do that.
So Colin Kaepernick kneels for the national anthem. It was obvious why he chose that specific maneuver. It would put eyeballs on him. This wasn't a purely selfish attention whore act on Kaepernick's part. He had a reason for doing this that he stated outright when questioned about it. This is what he said verbatim.
An exclusive interview after the game. I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder.
Now, before we go any further, let me be the first to say that I'm of the opinion that Kaepernick's condemnation of the United States as a whole is awkward and unwarranted. I personally don't blame Americans for the acts of murderous cops any more than I blame them for the bullshit wars that they're pushed into by their government and media. Kaepernick was hyperbolic in his condemnation of America. He shouldn't have said that, and I fully acknowledge that. But now that this caveat has been addressed, let's get back to the issue at hand. Tommy asks,
saying it happens to conservatives, if we're passionate about something, it's, well, that's because you're a racist, that's because you're playing to your base, you're riling people up, but why does it a liberal get to pass every turn?
To me, whether or not what she's saying here is actually correct is irrelevant. It should be true regardless. But let's just assume for the moment that it is true. Conservatives are not taken seriously on this issue anywhere near as much as liberals are. Why is that? Lahren, I now address this answer directly to you and the people who think like you. The reason people don't take your lot seriously on this issue is because you've chosen the single least substantive aspect of this situation to focus on. A man tried to bring attention to an issue that he cared about, specifically the unpunished murder of innocent people at the hands of police officers. And all your ilk can do on this issue is deflect to complaints about disrespect and a lack of patriotism. People have been murdered with no justice by some of the individuals who have been entrusted with public safety, and your ilk seems to have no interest whatsoever in addressing that problem. Your side's arguments on this issue seem to amount to little more than crowing about the desecration of your sacred cow, while we, the serious people, are demanding justice for the victims of murder. Moreover, when you aren't bitching about irreverence for the flag, you still dodge the issue of police brutality by introducing the strawman argument about the sacrifice of the American troops.
And was instituted was to try to remember veteran sacrifice during World War II, the Korean War, and
the
Vietnam
Red Scare.
War. Thank you for your service, Thank you for your service. And the reason that Colin Kaepernick was being selfish is during a moment when you're supposed to be somber and reverent, when you're supposed to reflect on the blood and the sacrifice that veterans put, he decided to make the cameras point at him. Not point at the veterans, not point at the flag. It was selfish for him to do that, to try to misrepresent a highly complex issue that is criminal justice reform at a very bizarre time to do it during the singular time in a sports ceremony. We take a moment to remove our hats and put our hands over our heart to remember the veterans that gave everything so that we can live in the greatest country ever to exist.
You lot seem to be mired in lopsided priorities. You're blinded by your patriotism to such an extent that any criticism of America, no matter how awkward or exaggerated, destroys your ability to recognize genuine injustice and sends you into a fucking tizzy. We bring up injustices that we'd like to see corrected, and your response is to deflect,
sacrifice,
to strawman,
unpatriotic and disrespectful,
and to just generally do anything you possibly can to avoid having the objectively more important conversation. If you're complaining about disrespect, sacrifice, and patriotism in a conversation about murder, then I think your socio-political perspective has decidedly lost the plot. Lahren actually does this multiple times throughout this panel. This second example goes much farther in elucidating the differences in priorities between American conservatives and liberals. The conversation involves Lahren using a tired cliche of a talking point regarding healthcare.
The issue at hand.
When you say every other industrialized country has done this and they're all so great, why the hell have you not moved? Because this is still the greatest nation on the face of the earth.
This is one of the most tedious and frustrating talking points that conservatives in America try to argue with, but more importantly, it's indicative of what they care about most in politics: loyalty, as opposed to solving problems. Just for the sake of argument, let's grapple directly with Lahren's point, which is that it's an acceptable course of action to immigrate to another country if your country's socio-political conditions are unsatisfactory to you. To be philosophically correct, I'd have to say that, yeah, it is acceptable to do this. But is it either an efficient or effective use of one's time and effort to go through the trouble of possibly learning an entirely new language and becoming accustomed to a new set of cultural traditions when war isn't a factor? That's a rhetorical question. No, it isn't. This is why people don't take Tomi Lahren seriously on matters like this. However, there's an even more insidious angle to this line of questioning, and it speaks volumes about how conservatives like Lahren look at liberals and their perception of what we think is important. You see, this is the thing, Tommy. The reason that I don't vacate the United States in search of established political conditions that are better than they are here is because I'm not only playing this political game for myself. It truly is that simple. People like myself, Kyle Kulinski, and Tim Black don't only advocate for political change on the sole basis that it would be beneficial for us. We're not only in this for ourselves. I can't speak with certainty on who Kyle and Tim are both concerned for, but I can certainly speak for myself as to why I play this game. I'm in this game for the 32 million Americans who have no health care because they can't afford it. I'm in this game for the further 50 million Americans who are underinsured on health care with gaps in their coverage. I'm in this game for the 50% of the American population who make $30,000 a year or less. I'm in this game for the 50% of American families who can't set aside $400 for an emergency. I'm in this game for the 53,000 homeless veterans in this country. You want to talk about the sacrifice of our troops, Kirk? What do you say to the veterans who got thrown as meat into the war machine for whichever bullshit conflict the United States government decided it wanted to start this week?
Jeff Bezos has over $150 billion. There are 50,000 homeless veterans in this country. If you could take 1% of his money to end homelessness for veterans, would you do it?
I hope he gives it voluntarily. I will not put a gun to his head.
That's a no.
I'll tell you why. First of all,
I'm in this game for the 6,700 troops that lost their lives as a result of the war in Iraq, a conflict that cost $2 trillion and led to the rise of ISIS. I'm in this game for Flint, Michigan, Detroit, and every other city across this country that doesn't have clean drinking water. I'm in this game for the employees of companies like Amazon, Walmart, and Verizon, who work for companies that break their backs and sponge labor and money off of them for the benefit of their corporate executives and shareholders. I'm in this game for the Americans in the Rust Belt who got their factory jobs offshored so that corporate executives and shareholders could line their pockets with a little extra padding. And above all of that, I'm in this game for our children and our children's children, who are going to be faced in the future with the biggest challenge that has ever confronted this species. Over the last few centuries, and particularly the last 50 years, we've toxified our ecology to the point that tens of millions may die in the future due to drought and famine caused by climate change. This is why I play this game. I want to save lives. I want to see people happy. I want to see reality represented accurately in our education system. I want people to not go bankrupt because of necessary medical procedures that they had to undergo to save their lives. I'm not in this for myself. I care about other people. So when Bernie Sanders and Nina Turner create a tweet storm of people declaring, "I'm willing to fight for someone I don't know," I'm inclined to agree.